issue that I'm having, or the complication, is around managing branches. Given that I don't want to commit to making a virtual file system just yet, I
Mhm.
just want to basically throttle the system to have a global lock on the repository so that it can only really work in one branch at a time.
Mhm.
Given the delays of the AI calls, I don't think it really matters that much. But um,
Is that a temporary thing, or is that a final
yeah, it's
architecture?
no, it's
Or
temporal.
okay,
It's
okay.
temporary. I will make the virtual file system in a few weeks,
Mhm.
and then that will just really give us a speed increase and being able to run things in parallel, uh,
Yeah,
which I think
yeah.
is essential, but not needed just now. Um, One issue I'm having is uh, helps are sort of looking a bit uh, interesting. Like
Mm.
they seem to be like a definition of some how to call a function. So
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
had a like you take npm for example, this big library of uh, what would you call those packages if you were to contrast them to how do I call those packages? Like some of them are executable, some of them provide code that can be called. There's often some information about instructions on how to call them, but a help seems very much more specific. It's almost like it's a library of verbs as opposed to npm being a library of nouns, if that even.
I don't get you on that one, but what you're saying, I guess, I like the NPM analogy. So, um, I'm looking at helps as effectively black boxes that can be stacked together like Lego bricks, a bit like NPM. How you stack them
Yeah.
is possibly a help, probably a help. Um, and the instruction, the intention, and what we were talking about yesterday about what to advertise the stack of helps as packaged can do
Hmm.
is a thing. But I'm not sure I'm getting your drift on what you're asking.
Well, they just seem like. Are we implying that the npm library is simply a type of help? A subset of all possible helps includes all of the packages in there?
Um, hmm. Let's think about this. There's two modes, isn't there? There is a help that could have nested helps all the way down.
Hmm.
Uh,
At
that
some point, you
is
have to
there to
exit out
be
and provide code, executable code.
right, right. Or actually, it doesn't need to be executable code. It could be a well-formed set of instructions to an AI that
Yeah, but the way I've been
has.
looking at that is that that's just that exits out to code where there
Mm,
is code that calls the AI, code that runs the AI, so that they don't really escape that principle either.
oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. There's so if there's let me think about this. So there's the discovery period. How do you find a help
Right.
that does what Dave's just asked?
Right.
There's
Now,
a second
npm
thing
is
that's
definitely not arranged like that to solve goals. npm is not
uh
goal oriented. It's like something in between. It's like thing orientated.
right. So the NPM analogy is only after um, you know what you want.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
that's right.
Um,
That's right.
so we need to do the discovery thing if we're going to
Like
do jitters. Um,
npm's actually super weak on being indexed by solution or what you want to do. Like you have to turn up there and you have to search by um you can't really put a natural language question in and expect to get something meaningful back.
well, sure, but what it does have is very strong dependency hierarchy.
Yes, yes, that's true.
So that's a bit like this part of the goal, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, it's a
dependency
lot like
hierarchy.
that. In fact, but that type of structure is like almost every programming language except C.
Yeah,
Because
fair enough.
any
Yeah,
any
there's nothing
any
new there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, anything with a package manager has that strong dependency relationship.
Yeah. So we've got the discovery thing, which doesn't exist. We want to do it with NL.
Yeah,
And we've got the, what did we call the, it's commissioner,
yeah,
um, that helps build goals in the stuck loop that don't exist. And the commissioner would go to the whatever we have for discovery and then take these Lego bricks, put them all together, write a decent instruction and advertise, and then boom, we've got a new help.
right.
Still not sure I'm answering your question though, man.
Uh, I don't think I'm asking it right. I think it doesn't strictly matter. It's just really about a philosophical difference in what the help is and when is something not a help versus is a help, and how do we position the help library relative to um, common rally points like npm.
Well, the way I've been thinking about help, maybe this will help with the helps, um, is a kind of
Could it have been named wrong?
it's a packetized bot that can sit
Right.
there on the shelf and be called on and relied on to do something black box with input output. So it's because then we can run the Guardian to make sure that it does the right thing, doesn't hallucinate, and so on.
Mm.
But you have an object there. That's how I'm looking at helps, and
Yep. Yep.
it's
Yeah.
helps
No, that
all the way up as well.
that seems okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Can I show you what I've done with the processing model so far?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'd love to.
Oh, well, I guess that's a fail.
Oh,
That's what happens when your screen zooms in a lot. And you go from like
I love
4K.
these online, like tools that makes you look like a 4-year-old scribbling on a wall.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. I'm gonna get rid of my
Okay.
desktop because it's getting in the way.
Okay. Don't want to learn. I just want to move. Oh, God. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
All right, this is the branching stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
Branch,
So
branch. Okay.
yeah, so we had this concept that each blockchain used to have its own AI channel, IO channel, where
Yep.
where something would an action would come in, it would be executed within the context of that chain, and then a result would be sent out. The
Sounds a
changes,
lot like help. Yeah.
yep, but the changes that I'm proposing, the changes that I'm proposing are that there's only really one, that each branch, the equivalent of a branch in the Git repository,
Uh-huh.
is a process or a thread. So under under Linux, you would have the proc file system that gave you all the concurrent processes running in the system.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we made the rule that each process is actually represented by a branch, so far it seems that you can model all of the process operations that you would typically expect out of a multi-threaded, multi-user system. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, spawn. Spawn is just, or child process in some systems is just a new branch.
All right.
Um,
Yeah.
IPC back to inter-process communication back to parent is just you're just merging back into parent. Sync, where the child synchronizes with the parent, is just a merge.
I'm saying IPC just needs. It doesn't need to merge. It just needs to send data, doesn't it?
That's the only way you can send data and get is a merge.
Right. Right. Okay. So, right. Got you.
Right
Got you.
now, you don't need to merge every single file, so it can be only for some files.
Yeah.
But
So you'd have a payload file where that's effectively
uh,
the packet of information.
yeah, but it's sort of like I've been treating the file system as like the whole state of the system,
Mm-hmm.
and then the processes just simply get an insulated, isolated view of that global state.
Yeah. So it just sees its own slice.
Well, no, it just sees the snapshot that it got when it forked.
Yeah. Okay. Makes changes and so on.
It
But
makes changes and then it merges back when it's done, and that's
yeah.
the conclusion of the process. I've also
Mm-hmm.
made this different rule that while you're in a branch, you can actually call on any piece of code or many pieces of code. Um, you're not restrained to just one piece of code. Like, what's important is the execution thread, not necessarily the code that it was running.
Yeah.
Like, it should be able to call on many different bits of code, whereas the old model in Interpulse didn't do that. It was locked to a particular piece of code. Like, that was a very strong embodiment in the model. Whereas I've torn that
So
apart here.
does that mean, for example, when you've forked, you still have access to all the helps everyone else has got? So you can still call.
Yeah, because helps are stored
Um,
on the file system, so
yeah,
you
no,
can
that's
call them
right.
all up.
Every thread, I think, should have access to everything that every other thread can do.
Yes, um, yeah. I think you want to have things like an ACL in there to restrict what different things can alter, just for sanity. But
Yeah.
it has the potential to be configured to allow everything to access everything, including accessing all the other branches so that it can communicate to other branches depending on what they're doing.
Okay, so the ACL could be that the help has a context which it's allowed to write to, but nothing else. Because what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It could be a
Yeah,
path that it's allowed to write to. It could say something about how much access it has to process control. Like, can it stop a process? Can it spawn new ones? Can it?
right, right. And the communication back really should be done. Crack on.
Well, it could be progress updates.
Uh huh.
So one of the
Still working
examples,
on it. Yeah,
well, this one
yeah.
here, this thread here was supposed to model what happens in the chat in the UI. So
Uh huh.
you've got your master branch here, or main as we're supposed to call it now, and you go, when you start a session, you're forking and you made a new branch. And then these little dots represent like Hal, Dave, uh, Hal, runner, Hal. And then
Yeah.
this final merge would be session close.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah, I mean,
That makes sense to me. I don't know
yeah.
what's again. I don't know what the question is. That seems
That
perfectly.
was the question. Does it? What
Oh
is?
right. Okay.
Does it make you feel ill, or does it sort of sound
No, no,
okay? Or
that sounds okay. The only question that's hanging, I think, is where do you store the history of the sessions for
yeah,
ways in
yeah. So
which,
that's that was our problem last night, and that's what
yeah,
this thing solves. The history of the session is something that gets is stored only on the branch, and then it gets deleted when it gets merged back in. And it's up to the process that's running on any given branch to decide if it wants to make use of the session file here, and to get it, it just simply walks back the branch history to recover the session file at any point in that history. If it wants the
yeah.
last known state of that session file, it just walks back to where the merge was, and then it has access to it there.
So the thing I was saying last night, I mean that I think works. The thing I was saying is it helps to have, let's say, you've got merge back command, and part of that merge back command is I've compressed down the session. I've removed all this stuff and the repetition and going round and
Oh,
round,
right.
and you can
I
use it
don't
raw.
want to I don't want to include that as um a system procedure.
Hmm.
If you want to do that, we should treat that as an independent piece of code that can be configured to do that, because the way I've got
Well,
it now, the only real exception I've had to make is when you call the branch, you can specify some files that you'd like reset to 0. So, for example, when I fork here, I can specify that I want the session file to be deleted because I always want to start with an
right,
empty
right.
session file.
Okay,
And
so
the reason
sorry.
I'm sort of saying that I don't like what you're talking about there is because that would require more rules at the system level, and I want less rules. And
That can be an NL thing. So, for example,
yeah,
the
that's right.
session I sent over with the curtains thing,
Yeah,
effectively the very last response was a summary of everything. And it's
right.
like, okay,
So yeah, you would
we've done
insert that as part of your NL programming within the help,
yeah,
where
and
you would say,
when it's merged, you can ignore it or you can
yeah,
store it.
or you can
Um,
summarize it, you can trigger a bunch of different things, you can do all kinds of things with it.
right,
I'm just trying to push as many operations as I can into the help land
yeah. The
and
um
away from the system.
Um, and the NL is really good at summarizing. Um, and
Yes,
so what I suggest is we put that into the bots, and then when it's merged back, the bot can decide whether to ignore it or not, whether to dump it on
right.
the floor,
Yeah,
whether to
yeah, yeah.
store
So in this model, the option would be entirely up to you whether you wanted to do the summarization within the child thread or the summarization upon return to parent thread. It doesn't
it. Right,
really matter.
right. And I'll give you my reasoning behind that in terms of curtains. So Dave comes in and he has this long conversation about curtains.
Right,
And comes to a conclusion, goes back to his wife, and his wife goes, I don't want that color. But you don't want to drop everything else
right.
about the size of the windows and all that kind of thing. You don't
Yeah,
want them to go
yeah,
back
that's
through the
right.
whole thing.
That's right. That's right. You want it accessible. And so you could almost turn this into like a retrieval text that could be drawn on through further discussions if there was a vector hit,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And so
exactly.
you can, but all those sorts of processes, those become coded in NL. So like, once you get to the end, you'd be like, okay, now make a vector embedding call and now store this in a vector database and then match it over here. So that seems entirely feasible to have been done with an NL powered help. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
agree.
so it
I
means
agree.
I don't have to, I don't, I'm
It's
just trying to not do stuff, right?
almost trivial, almost
Right.
trivial
Right,
to
right,
do
right.
that
But that means
summarization.
that the system code didn't have to change to enable that path because you not you keep coming at me with different things you want to try, and I'm trying to make a system that can make that your problem, not
Yeah,
mine.
yeah, yeah. So with the curtains, we've got say this is the first time he turns up at a shop,
Hmm.
uh, and he comes back out of shop. So we've got some memory here. Then we, for
Yeah.
example, we branch off again, but we remember the context because otherwise it's rude. You know,
Right.
saying, Dave, I've
Right.
never met
Right.
you
Right.
before. It's like, hey, I was in
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah. I know. So we've managed to do some session recovery on
Yep,
this person, and then recovered, and you've got all that context
yep, yep.
to go back to.
And compressed down as well because otherwise, um, you know, well, just
Well,
because it's a good, healthy thing to do.
it is good, healthy. It is healthy to compress like that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, that sounds like you're not really that opposed to the branching model
No, not at all.
that
I
I'm
think it's a
talking
good one.
about.
It's
Okay,
a good one.
and it means that I can do interesting features like tracing the consequences of a particular call, because
Hmm.
when you like put in an action like retake the Falklands,
Uh-huh.
it's if you didn't if you weren't able to trace the consequences within the system, you'd just have to sit back and sort of wait until it was like either done
Right.
or error. But
Yeah.
because of the way the branching model works, I can at any given moment I can be like, well, show me the tree of active processes, which is actually essential for recovery, because if the system halts at any given moment in this arbitrarily complex process tree, we need to restart the processes, but we don't want to restart from the initial action. We want to restart from the snapshot.
Right. So, what context would that restart involve?
So
Would it
I was
be?
saying, for example, the system fault occurred here.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we've just lost Sir Galahad because of an extra set.
yeah,
At this point,
that's right.
it's like let's roll back and
That's
not
right.
do that.
Well,
Um,
um, assuming you knocked out enough to be a cluster, so quorum was lost,
mhm.
then so long as we've got the data up to here is off on some other location, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't actually part of the quorum set. It was just acting as like a witness at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we're like, okay, major fault. We've lost this computational resource. We have the data up to here. Okay, we're going to forcibly take over quorum, and now we've got the system state up till here, and then we're going to begin processing. So I can load up the file system state here,
Mhm.
and then I know what the inputs to this action were. I can begin
Mhm.
executing. That merges back. This one, I would be like, oh, I don't actually have a live running process here. I'm going to have to restart back here. So then I
Mhm.
restart that, fast forward to this input. I come here. I'm like, oh, I don't have a running process to receive that. I go retake the Falklands, wait. Here's your result,
Mhm.
sort of thing. So,
Okay. Okay.
which is so the recovery is the same as verification.
So, what I would suggest to do with that then is examples are quite powerful.
Right?
The previous computation up to the point where you had the loss,
Yes.
if you can produce those as examples, then the bots will generally behave. But if it's just the session data, it will misbehave. If that makes sense.
Um, that's not true. I can each time if this is like bot response, for example,
Uh,
I can call the bot from here and I will get the same result back even if I didn't make these, because of the
um,
fact that I would have the session file up to that point.
yeah, but session files are dirty as opposed to examples which are clean. Um,
We're talking about computational recovery here. We're not talking about
oh, so
restarting a
this is not in
conversation.
land. This is not in
No,
land. Ah, okay,
that's
all right. Sorry, sorry.
the layer
Yeah,
down. That's machinery based, because
yeah,
we're
yeah,
like we actually lost the ability to compute, and we need to recover it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
Understand.
where that part goes to.
Yeah, no, cool. That works.
But
That
then
works.
all your concerns about dirty sessions and polluting the goal and being able to deprompt the bot as much as you can, those can be solved with different models in within this framework. So I
Yeah,
think that this tooling supports all those kinds of experiments without any additional code from me.
I agree. I agree. And remember we were talking when you were up here about atomic. I think we're where is it? Atomic goals
Yeah,
at the time, but
yeah,
it's a similar kind of idea. If we can get atomic helps that are as closely confined as possible, then the result is far more reliable
right.
than
Okay.
general goals.
Well, again, that's kind of up to you. The system that I'm making won't change then.
No, they
Like
won't.
I think this model so far stands all the sort of use cases you want to throw at it.
I
I
think
think.
so. So each blob here is NL. Really, what I'm looking for from you is the piping, the pipe work, the handoffs,
That's right.
because
Yeah, the
yeah,
I don't know what that's called in computing, but it's like the drive of the system. Like
yeah,
it's always trying to move to the next state, and sometimes
e-
it has to wait.
exactly, exactly. It's a bit like networking, or probably more
Right.
appropriate is
Right.
parallel processing.
So as long as it has power, it's going to try and drive that system forwards.
Yeah,
And the threading model here indicates to us what computing work remains to be done. The system can be said to be paused if it's run all its threads to ground, and it's just now all it can do is wait for the next input.
yeah, and then it just gives reports back saying
Yeah,
still waiting. Go
yeah,
on, Dave.
yeah. And
Still waiting.
so like a cron job would be modeled as this sort of branch that just sort of keeps on periodically ticking over here.
Yep,
So
yep.
being able to being able to trigger events based on time is pretty useful.
Yeah, yeah. Where in this is discovery? So, um, the
That's the way I've modeled discovery is just as another help. So you
mhm,
can call on it any time. It's actually
right.
no different. It's not a special
So
function.
this node uh, doesn't know what to do and calls discovery, and it's like, oh, you know what to do, because that's the stuck code,
Correct,
effectively.
correct. Yeah. So that all that
Um,
is
and then it's like, oh, you know what to do, right? Fine, go and do it, and tell me
right,
when you're done. And then it
right.
goes, and then it branches and nested all the way
Yeah,
down,
yeah. So
comes
the
back.
the
Okay.
the help loop is just another function in this
Yeah.
model,
Yeah.
and it could have been anything. It could have been power down. um, it could have
Yeah.
been literally anything, and so it sounds like I'm getting the generality that we need out of this model,
I
and that
suspect I don't know if this is true. There might be a few exceptions, but I suspect that everything except Dave is a help here. Um,
well,
and
yeah, yeah, that's right.
um, which is good
Mm,
and very simple.
mm.
And even Dave, I've started to think of Dave as a really shit AI.
Dave, you can model the user as a very poor AI, I think,
Yeah,
and then if
yeah.
it's just sort of
It's inconsistent and has all sorts of
yeah.
session
Like, I
ideas that
mean,
you
if you tried to ask the user to pass the Turing test these days, it would probably fail. But it has the
Fine
power
actually.
cord and it has the credit card, and
I've
that's
met a
why
couple of
that
guys that
particular
I'm
AI is special.
sure wouldn't. Yeah, I've met a couple of guys that sure wouldn't pass a Turing test. There's a pretty
Yeah,
low bar as well.
I know
Um,
it's pretty low. Um,
okay.
it's
Yeah.
almost like passing the Turing test became harder for humans as soon as a computer did it, because you could before you were pretty sure that you're like, no, that's a computer, but now you're
Yeah.
like, that might
Yeah.
not be, and so
Yeah.
I'm gonna just
I agree. I mean, the Turing test was a fantastic thought experiment at the time, but it's
yeah,
now defunct.
I know, I
Um,
know. Okay, all right. Well, I'll keep
all
I'll
right.
keep going with this thing. I think it's hard to say how much longer, but it feels very very close. Um, so I've got a single branch working, and now I'm just working on this nested call, so the child of a child,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the runner. And then how I was going to present this model in the UI was that um, I can just filter by branch. So if we don't want to show the runner, then we only show this branch.
Well, we can choose at what point, because busy loops are quite helpful because
Busy
you
loop,
know it's
yeah,
still.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we can even show that up until the time it completes, and then just collapse it away out of the UI.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's this is a really nice model to graphically present as well, because I think it
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
So did you? Sorry, after you.
Oh, I was gonna comment on the bot you made last night. Looked pretty
That's
damn
what I was
good.
gonna. That's what I was gonna ask for. Yeah.
Right, I'll give you the board.
Yeah. Let me get it back up. Thanks.
Yeah, that thing I sent you was really just showing that in terms of getting pseudocode before you try and get the machines to do anything else. That pseudocode is, I mean, that's how I think about things anyway. So it's sort of,
Yeah, brilliant. Hold on a second. This is the right one. Yeah, I'm on V2 of this.
right.
Let me share. Okay, so this is a blank session. So I'll show you the prompt. Oh, I've just leaked all sorts of information. Damn
Dude.
it. Okay, so it's a bigger prompt than I would like. But
Was there anything in there that, because
well, I'm not going to go back and look.
you can now do it quickly,
Okay.
and then you can at least.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, it was your
That's all good.
example
Okay.
and list of people that I know.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I should stop leaking information.
You should, my friend.
Yeah.
It's funny that like I can see when you're looking away, right? Like
That's important
right?
social information, really, isn't it? You know, if you know,
Yeah, you can be like, don't look, and then
Okay, so very briefly, what I did was I used a single blank bot to generate this information about
Yep.
what form would like, give it some definitions.
Yep.
That's fine. The functions are the part where I was pistol whipping it. There is doing it. Where's the key? There's the thing about retrieving the images. I haven't bothered generating any images. What I've done is do just consistent URL.
Oh, I think there's a test image site that you can find that will return you an image that has the parameters in it.
Yeah.
So you can just sort of know.
That would be good. That would be good because
Yeah.
at the moment it's just coming back with image not found.
Yeah, I know you'll have to hunt around for it a bit, but I'm pretty sure there's an example image site that will just on the fly generate you an SVG that has those parameters inside of it, which can just be, just a little bit nicer on the eyes, I guess.
Yeah. This is a new one, etiquette.
Etiquette.
Which because it was being believe it or not, when I didn't have that as a salesperson, I was thinking, well, fuck you very much.
They respond to
like
etiquette. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. All right.
Right. I always start with Hive. So
is this good enough that I can run the client through a test?
I think it would be very helpful to get the client's feedback on this.
Okay.
It's not storing anything to any kind of
That's
database.
fine. That's fine. It's more just, I guess, the style of the response.
Right. So there's a couple of things in the prompt. I made sure that it was only asking the next most pertinent thing in the form. So it's not saying, oh, you need to answer 10 things at once.
I know, because I hate that.
Yeah. You start with telling what type of Windows. Is it standard? Now, interestingly, I don't know what standard is. This is general knowledge from ChatGPT. I've not told it any of this stuff. I've just given it a form. So then it discusses with it. It seems to get it right. This is where feedback would be really useful. Is this right? Make sure the unusual shapes and angles sounds right.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's standard. And then it moves on to the next question. And there's the it's going to That's what's so it's already started up. This is just
Right.
cache.
That's pretty good though. I mean, the fact
That's
that
like
it
minimum
wanted to,
standard.
yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And it's like, and then it politely prompts you for. I've tried to make it slightly humorous as well, but
Why,
that's just
why,
because.
why is there backslash new line there?
Oh, I was trying to. That was just before I stopped earlier on. I was trying to get it actually to put some white space here
Oh,
because
right.
it's like,
Yeah, it doesn't seem to
um,
respond to that.
no, because what I was really trying to do is to say, get it to say, I'll show you. Um, uh, right at the start of every response, but I cannot get it for the life of me. Really, what I was saying is, I think it's standard, and it should be like, okay, this is what it looks like now. Right,
Right,
next. But
right.
that's finessing. That's finessing.
Okay.
Um, but the important thing is, so we've got the idea it's standard now. Now we're talking about mounting. So if we go back up to this, I've said that there's a priority, but it's a soft priority. You
Soft.
should go,
Okay.
yeah, you should go through this in order, but you can move around. The only thing is, don't ask for your order details first at the start because that's
That's rude.
rude.
That is bad
Yeah,
bedside manner. Okay.
yeah. Which is that was actually why I started the etiquette
Yeah, right.
field.
Oh, I see. Right. So the examples actually worked out. Yeah. Okay. Hey, that's cool, man.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like don't push for a sale. Um, use polite humor.
That
Uh,
is cool. Okay.
yeah.
That
And
is.
never ask for personal information unless all of the fields filled in.
That's awesome.
And it works. It works really well. So you'll see. So what asking for now? Mounting. I don't know about mounting. I have to ask my wife. So it deals with not going in a linear order.
Okay.
So
So
it's like I don't know. It's like of course. Okay, take your
so
time
what?
and discuss it with your
Okay.
wife.
So what we'll do then is I can see that I can immediately implant this into the version of HAL that we have now with this
Mm-hmm.
new branching model. Um, and then it will chat like this, plus the images will display and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then we can just put the stuck loop on top of that because at the start it can just simply, when it gets stuck, it just carries on as best it can and
Yeah.
just files the stuck in the background, and then we can start working on adding or building up the solutions to those stucks.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Now I'll not go through the whole thing because uh, at risk of leaking data again.
Yeah,
I'll go back.
it's
This is again. What is it?
it's
This.
quite hilarious actually that um, it's quite it's quite funny how the stuck loop doesn't really. No, actually, never mind.
Okay. Well, what I was going
Forget
to
what I
say
was saying.
is the in the same way as the compression idea at the end of the session. What I've got it to do, and it does it consistently, I've gone through this a few times, is produce effectively an order form.
Right.
Uh, and the order form, I've already told it what the order form is. This is what you're trying to do. And here we go. That's it. Um, now, what I think the next thing is, I'm going to add in. Now, this is a single bot, so the session prompt's getting quite large. I'm going to see what happens when I add in the CRUD loop. So it's like on completion. So it's reliably seeing when you're complete because it knows what
Right.
complete is.
Right.
And on complete is like write an order form into your
Right.
CRUD database. And
Right,
it's like,
and it's
boom.
capable of tracking that in memory.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly.
amazing. Okay.
So it goes off to the CRUD loop. Now um, that's going to be trivial. That's probably going to be one line in the system prompt. The thing that I'm not done yet is refer back to a kind of catalog or stock. So um, I've just basically said you've got an infinite warehouse, and you ask for anything, we can deliver it, which is
Okay.
obviously not true. So
Right.
I've got constraints to put in there.
No, that'll be perfect actually for this demo on Wednesday.
Mhm.
That'll be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
just
can add the CRUD loop easily,
mm.
and then in the single bot, say I am now admin. Tell me what my orders are, kind of
Right.
thing.
Well, I can for the demo, I can probably just hook it up to send out an email, and then
Yeah. Oh,
once it's got to the point where it's like, yep,
I
that's
think
cool,
that's that. Oh, that's much easier actually,
and
because the
then
I'm not entirely convinced about the CRUD loop yet because I've not tested it enough.
yeah.
But
So
if
all it's going to do is do a function call with the form parameters in it, and
right,
then I'll just turn that into an email, and off you go.
yeah, yeah. So and the email would just be this a dump of this text, presumably.
Right. I think it's hilarious that we'll be able to do a demonstration for a client, basically a total of 8 days since we dumped our code base. Like
That's kind of cool, isn't it?
that's
That's kind
ridiculous.
of cool. And I probably had about to get to this stage on curtains about maybe 12 hours thinking time and about 2 hours actually coding.
Right.
Not coding, but prompting.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Well, yeah, man. If you, I don't know how you would make that better, but if you can figure out any ways to improve it, this is an exact drop in to um, how HAL is working right now.
okay,
And so
well,
it's because all
what I'll do is V2 I'll freeze, um, and I'll fork into a
yeah,
V3,
awesome. Yeah. So
see if we
if you
can do
freeze
some
this
CRUD
and
stuff.
then right,
Because what we
and
really want to do with the CRUD is to ingest constraints on stock and capabilities. We can't do pleats, for
right,
example,
right.
and see what happens with that, because that's probably going to be the next question.
Yeah.
But do you want me to do anything with this alt text stuff,
No,
or
no.
do you want to take over?
Just leave that. I'll figure out how to insert some actual images in there.
Yeah, cool.
Um, I mean,
Um,
probably for your own sanity, it'd be nice to get the parameters showing. So if you find yourself a site that does that for you,
it would be nicer.
yeah,
What was that random image generator with parameters thing that you're talking about?
no, I'll try to find it for you. Um,
Because that would add an extra bit of fairy magic onto it, wouldn't it? The thing that was interesting, an observation while we're doing that, is the less prompt is the best prompt. It's definitely the best way to go. I spend most of my time removing lines from the prompt and always get better results subjectively.
hmm. Hmm. Um,
You can send it over later if you want. We don't need to do
yeah,
it
yeah,
live.
yeah. Okay, sure. Okay.
Okay, so I'll branch this into B3, um, and there's a couple of things I want to do is to ingest a real world catalog into the CRUD, and then get this bot to say, "I'm sorry, we don't have," or I don't know, something,
Yeah.
and see if that works. Now, question: the alternative I could do is this is good enough. Now leave it as is, and then go on to the pseudocode um,
Mm.
work that we're doing with Space Invaders, etc.
This is this is this is a big deal. This thing, because if we can get as much as we can ready for Wednesday, that's the most beneficial thing that we can do, because that can, well, it's income for one, but it's also uh, much a bunch of testing users. Uh,
Yeah. Okay, so what's the? I mean, this is a basic system. What's the bells and whistles that you reckon would be good to work on?
images,
Okay. All right.
images, and emailing out that form
Okay. So
would be
emails
great.
on your side,
Yeah.
and I assume that there's that service we can generate images for. I could do it brute force, which
Do
would be
you
a bit of
think?
a pain in the
Yeah. Do
arse.
you think you could make a table that uses that confidential site that I gave you, and then just put in a mapping to the URLs of the images that are stored um, on that site, and so that's sort of the
Yes, what we need to do there is so remember on the form.
mm,
Um, Now, maybe this is not the right way to do it, but every time Dave makes a choice, then you're honing down. Now, what we need to do is categorize those images to say
yeah,
this works with standard. This is an inside
right.
malware.
The way I
This
think
is
you would do
plain.
that is you would have the image URL, and then you would have a list of properties that went next to it, which may be incomplete, but it would allow the bot to do a lookup on. It's like, well, this is the closest image I have to these properties, and so I'm
Yeah, we
going.
could do that. We could do that. So I need to do something to do to categorize each of the images. If there was like a dump
Yeah,
of lots of images, I
I
need to
don't think I
categorize them.
yeah I don't think you need to actually do very many. Like half a dozen would get the point across. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
so we could do a happy path.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't
All
need
right.
to be
All
exhaustive.
right. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just
Oh, that's fine.
if
Yeah.
the images are showing up in even just in that feed that you're showing,
Yeah.
because what I'm thinking is I can just disable the third box for now for the sake of time, and we'll just show the images in stream,
Right.
and then you're like, well, surely you can see that we can make this three box thing. That's an easy jump of the imagination, and you'll be able to show the images that came directly from the customer's catalog, which is sort of
Right. Which is kind. Yeah. I've not got to the bottom of why it does that. I've done some Wireshark on the network, and the network's good. The Eero and
yeah.
um,
Have you
Starlink.
what's happening? Is the tracking being lost?
No, it seems to be pretty good.
Is it just network?
Um,
You think it's a network loss?
I think it might be that it might be something as simple as it's quite windy and it's winter, and the phase array at the top of my house is getting blown around.
It doesn't matter.
Might be.
You can mount those things on trees swaying in the breeze, and it doesn't affect the
Yeah,
phase away.
yeah,
Did you? Why don't you check your Starlink app and see if it had any outage reports for the moment you just saw now?
yeah. No, that's a good idea. What time is it? It's 4:33. Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then it'd be
Anyway, what I was about to ask is whether you want a kind of off-recording conversation about what we're presenting, or whether.
um, sure. Hang on.